happy anniversary and goodbye. And I hope it's not prophetic because it happens on our anniversary, Gary's and mine.
Lucille Ball, the fiery redhead who revolutionized television and made the entire world laugh, for decades, became the first woman to run a major television production studio and created a show watched by 60 million Americans every week at its peak. At 77, she had conquered an industry that tried to destroy her. She had broken every barrier Hollywood placed before women. But behind the legendary laughter and groundbreaking success lies a story not glamorous, but brutal, a tale of devastating heartbreak, tragic betrayals, crushing loneliness, and a final year so painful that the woman who taught America to laugh died, knowing she had lost everything that mattered. A pioneer who changed entertainment forever, yet couldn't save her own marriage, her own health, or escape the shocking reality. That fame means nothing when you're dying alone. This is the heartbreaking truth about Lucille Ball's final chapter. If Lucille Ball has ever made you laugh until tears streamed down your face, hit like as tribute to her courage. This is the story of a woman who survived poverty, studio exploitation, a communist witch hunt, public humiliation, and heartbreak so profound it nearly killed her, yet kept performing until her very last breath, proving that the show must go on, even when your heart is shattered. August 6, 1911, Jamestown, New York, the day Lucille Desiree Ball entered the world, marked not by celebration, but by struggle. Her father, Henry Durrell Ball, was a telephone lineman who worked grueling hours for poverty wages. Her mother, Desiree Deed Hunt, was barely 19 years old when she gave birth to Lucille in a cramped house that offered little protection from the bitter New York winters. The beginning was not glamorous, but desperate. When Lucille was just 3 years old, tragedy struck. Her father died suddenly from typhoid fever, leaving Deed a widow with 2 small children and no money. Lucille barely remembered him, but the absence shaped everything. Her mother remarried, but the new stepfather, Ed Peterson, didn't want Lucille around. At 7 years old, she was sent to live with her grandmother and step-grandfather in Celeron, New York, abandoned by the only family she knew. What few people know is that her step-grandfather, Fred Hunt, was cruel and abusive. He told Lucille she was worthless, ugly, that she'd never amount to anything. The psychological scars went deep. Lucille retreated into fantasy. She dreamed of becoming an actress, of escaping the suffocating poverty of upstate New York. At 15, she enrolled in the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts in New York City in 1926. Desperate to learn her craft, she was kicked out after just 6 weeks. The instructors told her she had no talent, that she should give up, that she'd never make it. One teacher wrote, too shy, advised she try another profession. The rejection could have ended her dream. Instead, it fueled her rage. Lucille Ball spent the next 7 years struggling in New York, working as a model for $5 per day, living in boarding houses, eating 1 meal a day when she was lucky. She was chorus girl number 23 in countless failed shows, nameless, invisible, but she refused to quit, not because she was confident, but because she had nowhere else to go. In 1933, at age 22, Lucille Ball moved to Hollywood. For 18 years, she worked as a contract player, appearing in over 70 films for studios like RKO and MGM. She was always the supporting actress, the best friend, the comic relief. Never the star. The studios called her the queen of the B-movies. It wasn't a compliment. She earned approximately $50 per week in her early contract years, barely enough to survive. She lived in a cramped apartment, sent money home to her mother, and watched less talented actresses get the roles she deserved. Then came 1940. Lucille met a Cuban bandleader named Desi Arnaz on the set of Too Many Girls. He was 23, she was 28. The chemistry was explosive. They married on November 30th, 1940. After a whirlwind 6-month courtship. The marriage was passionate, chaotic, and doomed from the start. Desi toured constantly with his band. Lucille worked in Hollywood. They spent months apart, their relationship fueled by longing and jealousy. Desi drank heavily and had affairs. Lucille knew, but stayed. She loved him desperately, DESTRUCTIVELY. By 1950, at age 39, Lucille Ball was still a working actress, but not a star. She'd been in Hollywood for 17 years and had nothing to show for it but exhaustion and a crumbling marriage. Then came the phone call that changed everything. CBS offered her a radio show called My Favorite Husband. It was moderately successful, and the network wanted to adapt it for this new medium called television. Lucille had one condition. Desi Arnaz had to play her husband. CBS said no. America wouldn't believe a red-headed American woman married to a Cuban immigrant. It was 1951. Prejudice was the rule. Lucille refused to back down. She and Desi created their own production company, Lucille Productions, mortgaging everything they owned. They toured the country performing a live act to prove audiences would accept them as a couple. CBS finally relented. I Love Lucy premiered on October 15, 1951. By 1952, it was the #1 show in America, watched by 67.3% of all television households, approximately 44 million viewers per episode. When Lucille gave birth to Desi Arnaz Jr. on January 19, 1953, the same day Lucy Ricardo gave birth on the show, over 44 million people watched, more than tuned in for President Eisenhower's inauguration. Lucille Ball, at 40, became the most famous woman in America, but fame came at a devastating cost. September 1953. Just as I Love Lucy reached its peak, the House Un-American Activities Committee revealed that Lucille Ball had registered as a communist. In 1936, the news exploded across headlines. Lucille Ball read, America was in the grip of McCarthyism. Careers were destroyed overnight. Lucille faced the very real possibility of losing everything. At a press conference on September 12, 1953, Lucille, visibly shaking, explained she'd registered to please her socialist grandfather, Fred Hunt, the same man who'd abused her as a child. She'd never attended a meeting, never believed in the ideology. Desi Arnaz defended her publicly, telling reporters, the only thing read about Lucy is her hair, and even that's not legitimate. America forgave her. The show continued, but behind closed doors, the marriage was disintegrating. Desi's drinking spiraled out of control. His infidelities became increasingly public. Lucille discovered he was sleeping with prostitutes, with actresses, with anyone willing. It is heartbreaking when the man you love uses your success to justify his destruction. In 1960, after filming 108 episodes of I Love Lucy and its successor The Lucy-Desi Comedy Hour, Lucille Ball filed for divorce. She was 48 years old and emotionally shattered. On May 4, 1960, their divorce was finalized. Lucille bought out Desi's share of Lucille Productions for approximately $2.5 million. Becoming the first woman to run a major television studio. Lucille produced hit shows like Star Trek and Mission Impossible, eventually selling for $17 million in 1967. She was a mogul, a pioneer, a success by every measure, but at night, she was alone in her massive Beverly Hills mansion, grieving the only man she'd ever truly loved. In 1961, Lucille Ball married comedian Gary Morton, a man 13 years her junior. She was 50. He was 37. The world saw a happy remarriage. But the truth was different. Lucille married Gary because she couldn't bear to be alone. Not because she loved him the way she'd loved Desi. Gary was kind, stable, loyal. Everything Desi wasn't. But he also wasn't Desi. Friends described the marriage as affectionate but passionless. Gary became her manager, her companion, her caretaker, but never her equal. Lucille remained haunted by Desi until her death, keeping photos of him in her home. Calling him late at night, asking what might have been, she continued working relentlessly. The Lucy Show ran from 1962 to 1968. Here's Lucy ran from 1968 to 1974. She appeared in films, specials, Broadway shows. She worked because stopping meant confronting the loneliness. By 1986, at age 75, Lucille Ball attempted one final comeback with a sitcom called Life with Lucy. It was canceled after just 8 episodes. The rejection was brutal. Critics called it painful to watch. Audiences stayed away. Lucille, who'd been America's sweetheart for 35 years, was suddenly irrelevant. She retreated from public life. Humiliated and heartbroken. 1988. Lucille Ball, now 77, lived quietly in her Beverly Hills home with Gary Morton. Her health was deteriorating. She'd been a heavy smoker for decades, and her heart was failing. She suffered from severe arthritis, making movement painful. Her once vibrant red hair had faded to gray beneath the wig she wore in public, but she insisted on maintaining appearances. Lucille Ball never wanted the world to see her weak. On April 18, 1989, while at home, Lucille experienced sudden, severe chest pain. She was rushed to Cedric-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, where doctors discovered a dissected aortic aneurysm, a life-threatening condition requiring immediate surgery. The 8-hour operation on April 19, 1989, was initially successful. Surgeons believed she would recover. For a brief moment, there was hope. Lucille spoke with Gary and her children, Lucy Arnaz, 48, and Desi Arnaz Jr., 36. She seemed optimistic, planning what she'd do when she left the hospital. Then, early in the morning of April 26, 1989, her aorta ruptured again. There was nothing the doctors could do. Lucille Ball died at 5:47 a.m. on April 26, 1989. Just 8 days after her emergency surgery. She was 77 years old. Her last words, spoken to Gary the night before, were reportedly, "I love you." But what few people know is that Lucille died terrified and in pain. Her final hours filled with medical interventions, tubes, machines, a far cry from the glamorous exits she'd scripted for Lucy Ricardo. Desi Arnaz, her first husband and eternal love, died just 4 months later on December 2, 1989. At age 69, from lung cancer. Even in death, they couldn't escape each other. At 77, Lucille Ball left behind an empire. Her estate was valued at approximately $40 million at the time of her death. She owned properties across California, jewelry, art, and residuals from decades of television that continued to generate millions annually. But more than money, she left a legacy that transformed entertainment. Lucille Ball pioneered the 3-camera setup still used in sitcoms today. She proved women could run studios, produce content, and control their own careers. She broke racial barriers by insisting on casting Desi Arnaz. She normalized pregnancy on television when showing pregnant women was considered obscene. She received 13 Emmy nominations and won 4. She was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame in 1984. She received the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously, yet she died believing she'd failed to keep Desi, failed to age gracefully in the public eye, failed to create one final hit. The world saw a legend, but the truth was different. She was a woman who sacrificed everything for a career that gave her everything, except what she truly wanted: lasting love. Her children scattered her ashes in Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Los Angeles, alongside her parents, keeping some to later mix with Desi's ashes, a reunion in death they couldn't achieve in life. Gary Morton lived until 1999, grieving the woman who'd married him, but never fully loved him. At 77, Lucille Ball proved that you can change the world and still lose the battles that matter most. From Jamestown, New York to Hollywood, from poverty to power, from rejection to revolution, Lucille's journey was one of relentless determination in the face of impossible odds. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Lucille Ball's laughter reminded you that joy can exist, even in the darkest times, that pioneers often pay the highest price, and that the people who make us laugh the hardest are often crying behind the curtain. Lucille Ball, 77, proved that legends aren't born from happiness. They're forged from heartbreak, resilience, and the courage to keep performing even when the audience has gone home and you're left alone with your pain, wondering if any of it was worth it.